presidential affairs. Also in the room we have key players from the ministries, departments and agencies, and all these have an impact on what trade between Uganda and many other countries is all about.
In the private sector, we all know, what did I sell yesterday? If you have a company, what's my income statement end of the month? But when it comes to government, that's not the way we think. We think, how much is my budget this year? But we don't think of, what is the return on every shilling I have earned? You have not actually earned it. It is given to you and no questions. If we bring that thinking in the way we look at what I called oxygen, for those of you who came late, I called oxygen, exports is oxygen, everything else is carbon. Because we're just consuming without knowing who earned what. So if you think of what Andrew shared, he's trying to tell you, yesterday my income statement was this. Today this is how I look. If you approach it from a business mindset, you will really now know the reforms you must make today in order that you don't fall back or you perform better than how you did 2 years ago. And so if you listen to Andrew, you listen to Ezra who left from UMA, Ambassador Kamahunje, I think he has also gone. You listen to Ufza, you listen to my brother, Assistant Commissioner from Trade, and the last speaker. What we are basically saying, I wanted to summarize it in this way and then we can close. I want in your mind to picture what are the strategic, I couldn't find a word, strategic market entry reforms required. I call it market entry really because we are on those markets but really blindly. We are there in a very haphazard manner. So even us, what we're doing in Pasay is quite haphazard because when there's a crisis in tea, we find out Egypt, no, at least we're doing some research now. You have research in 7 African markets. They should inform you what you should or should not sell. So a picture in your mind, if we are going to walk out of here with what are the question he was asking, what does Uganda want? What is the strategic market entry reforms needed to be carried out? Certainly, you start with your house, internal. If our homes are not functioning very well, so those of us who are married know, for me when I'm not okay with my wife, then I'm thinking about what I need to do when I get home. So I better sort out before I leave. Madam, are we good? Good. Good for the day? Good. If you are not okay domestically as a country, how many countries you fly to and how many seminars, it doesn't add anything. So on the domestic or internal reforms, let's look at infrastructure. Has Jennifer gone? Jennifer, you're here. We're about to finish so we can speak to you. Under infrastructure, whenever we speak of infrastructure in Parliament, in Cabinet, we think of, President emphasizes, power at 5 cents. It's great. Water, cheaper. But roads, railways, I think we know that conversation, those words. For me, they have registered over the years as the President's strategic intent on infrastructure. But what he does, or what we think, you have this platform from there up to here, but you only mention from here up to here. Infrastructure goes beyond. So for example, laboratories of a country that test meat, grain, fish, flowers, fruits, vegetables, cement, those labs must be certified internationally, must function with the right skill sets. They must have funding for beakers, Bunsen burners. You see, I'm using old language. Those are no longer there. So labs are like a road. If you have a good road without a lab, you are not carrying things to the market that will be sold. When you think of Uganda Airlines and Uganda Air Cargo, so I prefer to think this way. Think of infrastructure in the sky, infrastructure on the water, infrastructure on the land. Because 50 years from now, some of us, some of you, maybe me, I'll still be here. Some of you will not be here. But we'll have kids who are asking for the fourth dimension, space. And I see young people already asking those questions. Why is Uganda not in the fourth dimension? Why do we keep on land? But even on land, but let me first deal with my trouble of today. In space, I don't have enough aircrafts, cargoes, or with cargo space that can take my goods wherever they are needed. So if you close your eyes and think of Uganda Airlines and Uganda Air Cargo as your sky infrastructure, you will be careful what you say on social media about Uganda Airlines. You'll be very careful what you say in Parliament or privately, because there are things you need to fix with Uganda Airlines, because any little thing you say that is negative affects an inbound passenger or someone who is going to put cargo on that aircraft. So I can really dislike Jennifer. I don't know, she's from Kabalore, she's married in Chigezi, and we are tired of all those people there. Please bottle them up, because she will not be there at some stage. But this brand called Uganda Airlines is like a candle in the wind. If you blow it with your negativity, instead of affirming it, instead of elevating the little you have, remember, you are 28 years out of the skies. You've just been restored. That's the sensitivity required to fix things. So, I know, taken a lot of Uganda Airlines. Sorry, Jennifer, I'm using you as an example. But if you speak to General Akara, he says, why are you not connecting me in the conversation with Boeing so that I also have a cargo partnership in a cargo center, a cargo hub that is much larger than what we have, where we can repair aircrafts, maintain them, where we can land particular size aircrafts. That's how we should think of infrastructure in the skies. But there's infrastructure on the water. So there's a gentleman who came to me 2 weeks ago. They've built their own ship in Entebbe, and it's 1,000 tons. I forget the name. Matthew, what's the name? Mr. Sujar. You know him? Seco Marines. So, but the issue I wanted to raise, after he finished doing the ship and he's about to sail, institutions don't work together to give him a landing port, because NEMA wants this done in a particular way, but trade wants it in a particular way, and agriculture wants it in a particular way. And so, and I'm not complaining. When he came, I said, let's call NEMA. We certainly can use science to fix certain things. So, you know, the way we enforce things is strange. We are many people trying to solve one problem, but we all come differently. And sometimes some of us come with police and guns and I'm an investor, I'm thinking, what have I done here? These things, they are really the stuff you meet when you go out of the country. So, infrastructure needed on the water is something you need to look at your legs and think about. I'm really going through this so you understand our next meeting should be very detailed, not lamenting, but basically saying, what do we do in this area? What do we do in this area? Who is qualified in that area to do the job? So infrastructure is internal capacity. We need to think together, not government, private sector, local government, all of us, to understand what happens. The second area internal to think about is markets. And when I speak of markets, it's nobody will buy something in Eastern Europe unless you are consuming it here. And the way you consume, prepare, pack, and package it defines how that product will be perceived outside. So you know how we have like 2 lanes? We think this is Chinocha Masaka. Nanas is Masaka, Tofayo. Do we all speak Luganda? Some Luganda at least. Pineapples which come from Masaka, just throw chickens of Masaka on border. But the person is snapping away pictures when you now have these nice presentations about beautiful pineapples from Masaka. They already know what happens locally. So these markets, I don't want to talk about domestic market. It's okay, I just want to talk about in relation to the image we are creating outside. You need standards and compliance. So we're building something called Food and Agriculture Authority. There has been a debate whether you should have chemicals, disease surveillance and pest control, veterinary medicine and equipment, plant health, animal health, food safety, under one house. So Ministry of Agriculture, a week or so ago, there was a debate on whether you should keep plants out, but there is now some minimum agreement that an independent authority with powers to issue certification, to inspect labs, to say that don't mention this, because you've seen when locusts come, we are the first to talk about them, even if those locusts are coming from the neighborhood that has kept quiet. Or if an incident happens in a game park, we are the first to distribute the pictures of what happened. Yet, our travel agents have done bookings a year in advance. That insensitivity is lack of a national collective ethic. And what I'm trying to do, that's why I said in a rush when MPs were stealing, that it's a culture war. It's not as simple as things look. So, if you're talking about the standards authority that is coming, all of us need to feel that tea is catered for, coffee is catered for, cattle and sheep, and then pest surveillance and pest control and how you communicate. I really want to, so number one, infrastructure, number two, markets, number three, standards, number four, comms, communication. Really not all of us should be allowed to say whatever we want to say about our products, about our country, anywhere, because some of us don't know what to say. And even if know what to say, we don't know how to say it. And then we end up just causing ourselves problems. Centralizing communication outputs of a young country that needs to attract capital is a strategic objective. So I don't know how to do this. I'm only just sending this to you because I know that police will wake up and they will issue a report. The army will wake up and issue a report. The Minister of Health issue a report. Ofono Pondo will speak what he speaks. So if you're a business person trying to invest in a country or to sign partnership with Kajinja as an example, who came in last, I'm using her as an example, why should I sign with you? Because this is too much. It's too much negativity coming from you. It's too much uncoordinated activity, and it's costly in terms of transactions. So, I'm trying to close quickly. So, please, internal, I need, so PASAID has operated in this space a bit. So, Brenda, stand up again. So, Brenda, you don't understand domestic market, do you? Or at least you're not dealing with it. So, you need to have someone from, let's say, UMA or PSFU and the Ministry of Trade, and see how to tie down the international thinking to the local thinking so that we're really not speaking from space. So on markets, I want you to take her number. Now, there's someone helping here with coordinating infrastructure directives of the president. And I don't know how many blue letters you've seen talking about road this, port that. You've seen them. But how come those things don't get executed? Don't get done? So we are trying to be a little bit deliberate. When we are copied in a letter about an aerodrome, you sure as night follows, they will fight like hell. Like heaven, sorry. I want to fight like hell. We'll fight like heaven to get it done. Because we're not looking for votes. We don't want to be members of parliament. We want to build our country. You understand? Because there's a bit of confusion there that anyone who is fighting for something good wants votes. No. I want a country where my children will feel proud to search and get a job so they don't have to work in a foreign country. Because many young people, Ugandan young people, they return, they can't understand how to work in Uganda. And it bothers me. So, Alan, where are you? So Alan is helping coordinate directives of HE on aerodromes, with CAA, so you give them the number so that you also find, because you don't know much what is out there. People in government, people in private sector know a lot on this infrastructure. I speak of Kalindoni, but we know the oil and gas people have badges at Wanseko. What can we do to restore Kalindoni in a new way through some badges? So Alan is coordinating on infrastructure. All infrastructure needs, send them to him. Standards, Mahmoud is not here. Who's here, Brenda, on standards? Is Maria here? Okay, so we'll channel to this Brenda Opus. On standards, we are about to get to cabinet with this Food and Agriculture Authority. I really want the tea, sugar people to know what is going on there, because once this authority is created, my preference, I'm praying really that that happens. We got to recruit internationally, remove the politics, find an executive person who run the Canadian Standards Agency, and we budget for him or her, and we ensure that this agency becomes our sanitary and phytosanitary center, where you can go and say this works in relation to agriculture, in relation to trade. So Brenda, take the details on Food and Agriculture Authority, connect them with where we are so far. Can I move on now? So these are internal reforms for market entry, and they encompass all of us: trade, agriculture, parliament. All of us should be interested here. The next level is regional. You really heard that 45% of our manufactured goods go to the region. So why are we wasting time in the US? That's a very legitimate question to ask. So we are not wasting time in the US. When you have a class of 20 students and you are number 19, you have also SAT exams, right? But there is number 1 and number 2, who really schools will be fighting to take. We want to learn from the best on patents, on technology, on competition, so that we don't just focus on, because President Nyerere, again, I'm diverting, but I like history. People who don't study history don't lead. If you ever see anyone who thinks history is nothing, because there's nothing new in the world. There's nothing, it's just every generation applies itself and fails or succeeds. President Nyerere succeeded on uniting Tanzania around Ujamaa because he didn't like tribalism. He had seen the tribalism of the neighborhood, I mean, not to mention countries. And he said, no, I'm going to destroy tribes. You don't speak your language publicly. You go speak it in the night, so I'll get Buhaya area, the Bahaya, I'll call it Mwanza, so that I can take away the feeling of my Buhayaism. Anyway, he succeeded on that, but he inverted the economy. In other words, the economy went down, although the politics were stable, and in 1990, he admitted, said, I didn't know, and I'm going home. I am letting parties come in. Why? Because he thought that by selling coffee and kitenge in Mwanza and Dar es Salaam is much more profitable than selling it in London and Washington. But we have a leader who learned from him. President Museveni he's a student of Nyerere, so he improved. He said, yes, you can handle unity, but you must free the private sector to do what it does. It's just that many of us are not intentional on learning. We just see elections, we don't see the intent of someone and study them very well. Now, that inversion of the economy, Tanzania understood it, brought back the private sector, and Tanzania is doing very well. If you look at tourism arrivals, they are now among the top 10 in Africa. In fact, Kilimanjaro receives 60,000 arrivals annually. Your Rwenzori here, which is the most 16 peaks in Africa of the best are on Rwenzori. 4 of them are snow-capped. It has the physical, geographic culture, beautiful. It receives 1,600 people. Why? Organization. Point I'm trying to make is our region, our last sales last year, we need to check this, Brenda, I think 57% in 2022 went to East Africa. So on the regional reforms, what I want to leave with you, can someone help me think around FCTA? Because FCTA was signed in 2018, but we have not activated it in Uganda. We have not set up a national steering committee on the common market of Africa. We have not joined the general trade initiative with the 8 countries that already are trading. Why? I don't have to answer you now. It's something I want to leave with us in terms of planning. How do we activate this? Minister of Trade, my brother, is in. So let's think together. Andrew, everyone, put the hands on the deck. Although we are talking to America, the real growth is in the region. Now, then you have these bilateral agreements we've signed since 1962. Very many. Every time you see the head of state going, you see them signing MOUs. Do you ever see those things? You sign $500 million worth of milk entry into Algeria. It's 2 years. How much milk have we sold in Algeria? 0. So please listen to my voice. I'm not complaining. I'm just telling you this is how we are. And we need to understand how to move. I've used Algeria, but we have so many bilateral agreements. So I've asked for only 45. Can we take those 45 bilateral agreements and break them down into Luganda, Runyachitara, Ateso, Lugbal, so that the citizens can understand what is it you signed and how are you going to execute it. So that you members of parliament seeking election, those should be the questions they ask you. How much of my vanilla or coffee will you sell in Kinshasa? The moment we start to get citizens asking those questions, we'll have a different set of MPs and ministers. So, I want my brother from Trade, take this message. I've spoken to Geraldine, the PS. I've spoken to Ndolere, Cleopas, about this issue, these 2. Can we get these and break them down like little tablets and feed them to our citizens so that they put pressure on us to execute on those agreements? And then non-tariff trade barriers. I was in Kenya last week, informally. So we want these meetings with cameras, but the real deals are done behind informal relationships. So I looked for the trade advisor to President Ruto. I said, I want to take you out for, she's older than me, lady. I want to take you out for coffee. Who are you? I said, I'm Ugandan and I'm coming on Friday. Really? So she waited for me. We went to a golf club and had coffee, and I had a list of all NTBs. And then I also had a list of our own NTBs we were putting on their products. And I said, can you be my friend? So that we stop the talk. We reach decision makers and say, you can't slap this without us responding. Uganda has a lot of political will on integration, and it is abused by the other regional members. They shut you out, you keep open. I said, you cannot allow our citizens to start rebelling against this goodwill. And she took it seriously, because I feel that before cameras, there should be, there are cameras recording these things. There should be informality. So if you have friends in the region, I ask you, let's use those relationships. Instead of, we'll never be Dutch. I'm never going to be an Icelander. I'm always going to be here. So how can I not talk to my neighbor? That's the argument on NTBs. Obviously, before things become formal, we should have internal conversations to not let people stop our products or issue certificates that say this is chicken feed, yet they are using it as real products they sell back to us. Can I stop here on regional? Do I make sense to you? Because if you've dealt with internal, the next is regional. Finally, I need some conversation. I'm really setting an agenda for our next meeting after 28th with the same group and MPs. International, I want you to look at where do we have trade representatives. Kamahunje has mentioned the question of commercial councillors, they call them? Commercial attachés. I want us to call those commercial attachés after we've agreed and give them our manual. This is what we expect you to be doing, and connect them with our trade reps. Because Kamanzi there does not know which commercial attaché is in Florida or wherever it is. Huh? The coordination between our trade reps and commercial attachés and embassies will give us fundamental strength to appear to be present on those markets. But you can't do that well. You can do it. The Chinese have taught us in English teachers in schools, because we're really kind of, our mind is Western, even the way we see the world. We refuse to accept it, but that's why we're beaten. We don't have our own original thinking. The British teach us go step 1, step 2, step 5. The Chinese say go step 1, step 3, come back to 1, go to 7, come back until you fix it. That's why you find them in the nooks and crannies of our country. Their businesses are succeeding. They pull the rugs. They do whatever is done. That competitive drive, we don't have it because the thinking is not very right. We know how to write reports, but we don't know how to coordinate and execute. So I want survey results. We need to do some survey on key markets. We get those surveys, we use them with the trade representatives and commercial councillors. And then it's not enough. We establish hubs, where a hub has spokes. If you ever rode a bicycle when I was a child, a hub is where you say, I'm present, and I have these products, and there's a cafe, and people can come and sit, and there's a screen, and you can see Rwenzori and our gorillas, and you can say, which country is this? How do you get your coffee? How do I get there? Even that for citizens of that country is very, very good. Once you strengthen that hub, then you can bring on more services. You can bring on application for visas here to go to Uganda. Travel agents have a desk here. But you must find someone willing to spend their money. What Kamanzi is telling you, we're finding independent people to do it at their cost so that we contribute the best way we can to ensure that that presence on the market is known. I am thinking of where we have BASAs, bilateral air service agreements. Where should Uganda Airlines be landing next year? That should be a question that concerns you. They're in Mumbai, they're in Nigeria, but should they not be landing in another part of our continent or world? Why are we delaying the landing of Uganda Airlines into Heathrow? Why? Yet Heathrow, no, I don't want to. So we've been at it, we've hired a consultant, we have too many institutions really not delivering what works. So I want to combine landings with results, with reps, trade reps, with hubs. If I can deal with domestic, go to the region, go international, I think members of parliament will now understand the strategic lay of the land on how you trade. So if this can become our agenda, next meeting, so Brenda, you will coordinate the next meeting, you issue these letters on time. So from here, I wanted to close this way. So all I said, I had not gotten to execution. All I was saying is coordination. Because you had the Honorable Amwaka say synergy. All I was saying is coordination. So if I come to how do we execute? We have institutions. Ministry of Trade, I just listed a few. MAIF, Agriculture, Office of the President. So If you elect a president and he has a mandate, he should be focusing on how much he sells to the rest of the world. Should be the chief salesperson for the country. But if you don't push that mandate and you focus on how many new constituencies are needed, how many more, I don't know, all those things that we keep speaking about without knowing that they are consumption areas, they are not productive areas. So institutions here, I want you to list as many as possible so that we know who we need in the next meeting. You have this institution called Parliament. You must provide the necessary awareness for them to understand that the sitting they get, the pay they get per sitting is connected to the sale of coffee and the tourists who arrived this morning on Uganda Airlines flight. In fact, if you walked in and say, have you checked how many passengers are paying for your sitting today? It would be a nice one. It would be a nice one to say, oh, so sorry, today we'll go virtual because we got few people, so we can't come in. How I relish a moment like that to say, what did you sell before you ask for anything? Because the Baganda say, oh, kalyadda, kadadda, mbuchewatadde mu lubuto tunakiraba. What you ate will show up. But what you didn't eat, we also see it in your emaciation. We understand. So anyway, Parliament, there are many committees. We picked a few, and I wanted to use them as a point of contact moving forward in our team. Local government, huge wonderland, huge forest out there. I can tell you, I thought about this. I said, I don't want to go there at all. I don't want, because this is going to bury me. Because here, you need the district leaders at a regional level to agree on what is the strategic product from their area. And then you apply the other standards, which I mentioned. You apply the other buckets. You can only do it if you are building consortiums. Please don't bring Ruabugo's milk only. Bring the milk of Western Uganda as a region. Because Franschhoek in South Africa sells 100 million liters to EU. And Franschhoek region has taken that as one strategic weapon to bring up local government leaders, national leaders. They even force positions to be taken by government, including don't bring wine into South Africa. If you do, we'll charge 300%. And the governments accept, because consortiums speak one voice. For us here, when we think of consortium, I think of my company being the lead. I think of my... No. So help me on how we deal with local government. Because they're the ones that host those game parks, nightclubs. I keep getting messages from hotels of the nightclubs and religious institutions that are 95% decibels. They kill the ears at 3 a.m. when tourists are sleeping. In some countries, there's an order that at 10 o'clock, volumes must go down. Because someone flew from London to be quiet, not to listen to Ubangain at 3 a.m. Anyway, but how do you execute these things unless you have dealt with local government? So I need help there. Consortium and production is at this level. Now, once you have dealt with institutions and associations, parliament and this, you come to a company. You saw the brands of companies. A company is the only gateway to sell. So we must unite around a company or a set of companies in the tea sector to lead us, in the coffee sector to lead us, in the beef sector to lead us. Under these companies, we should have associations, UMA, PSFU, because here we find self-regulation. There are things that don't need to go in the public space. All the associations can come here. Under this, we find finance. There's a lot of finance going on, invest, all those World Bank support groups. How can we develop one punch that supports exports? And we're working on that. But I need your support in that area. And then, of course, enforcement. I think that's so. If you deal with these, are we together or I have really spoken too long? Have I lost you? I didn't train as a teacher, but I like to know that I'm still, in terms of circuits, connected to the brain listening. So this is my final one. These are the questions you should ask yourself. What roles do each of these things I've mentioned play? This is serious. If I'm bringing problems, but I bring zero solutions, I'm just wasting time. So can we define the roles? Number two, if I know a role, what is the skill set that I have? If I don't have skill set, you hear Kamahunje admitted we need to train those commercial counselors. They are outdated. They need new software. They can't speak the language of modern Uganda Airlines and how you book. They don't know how to send these quick video clips. They are participating. They are in London, but talking about Ugandan election in Lira. So they are not mind connected to trade. What skill sets? And what are the needs? Because we shouldn't assume that people don't have needs. Each institution has specific needs. What budget requirements? Because this is what we always start with. We start with the money before we can know what task we need to do. So I want to stop here, but ask you, from what we shared when we started, to the comments that were made, can we set a date? Or maybe that's, Brenda, you'll send a date, the time. It should be after Easter. We should come back to the same room. Bring back the same people. But they should have thought through this whole journey I went through, right? And we should have point men and women. We say, you help present on the internal. If you can't manage internal, just manage infrastructure for us. We'll connect you with Alan to tell you what we've already done so you don't bring things which we've done. Someone at a regional level, take leadership on this. Someone at an international level. I'm telling you, the document that comes out of here, it becomes the ministerial statement she was asking for. It is also something we can, all of us, go and say, Mr. President, this now is a combined thought of how we want to deal with trade 2024, 2028. If you have objections, tell us. So now, next time, UMA or some finance is talking about budgets, the danger is that we are pulled in many areas without a joint dashboard. This gives me one dashboard on exports. Does this make sense? Okay. Shall we close our meeting here, Brenda? Okay. So if there is no question, or is there any question to this? You all seem satisfied, filled up, huh? Okay. Did you take a record? Did we leave our email addresses and telephone contacts? Because I want her to send this as a way forward of what we've agreed. Okay? And then you send an email when we meet next.